Hello and welcome back. This is Sherri with Heart and Soulful in the studio today working on my vintage book journals. I'm going to split this into two videos because I have a lot to share. I haven't been doing as many videos, but I have been working on these. And so I'm to a point now where I want to do a final flip through, but because they're two and they're really chunky, that's going to take a while on its own. And I kind of want to catch you up on what I have been doing on the inside in case you've been following along and kind of making your own journals. So if you're brand new to my channel, welcome. I hope if you enjoyed this video that you'll give me a thumbs up. Leave comments if you have any questions. And if you want to subscribe to my channel, just click the subscribe button. And if you click on the little bell, you'll get a notification when I post a new video. So I'm going to set these aside for just a minute. If you are brand new and you haven't been following along, I have been making these two journals kind of at the same time and for a reason. The reason is I used some old books and then used old book pages combined with digital kits to do the insides. In the time that I've been working on this, I have been creating my own digital kits to use in these. As I've needed things, I decide to create my own papers rather than used purchased ones. Now I have a couple, I think that I have very little bit. When I do the flip through, I'll mention them, but where I did grab a couple of actual paper packs. But most of this is either old book page or digitals to do the whole things. And I wanted them to look a little bit different from each other using the same kits to see how you can kind of make them your own. So today, what I wanted to share in this video, I'm to the point in the two journals where I was starting to add ephemera and little cards and tucks and all the kind of, decorative goodies. And so today's video, I'm going to be sharing the second kit that I created to use that have more a little ephemera pieces. And then also the second half, I'm just going to show you an actual crafty little things that I made to put into my journals. So, and then I'll do a final flip through in the second video. So if you haven't been watching this series, I put my channel together with playlists. So if I'm working on a project like those two journals, they will have all the parts and pieces of those in a certain in their own playlist. So that way you can start from the beginning. So I'll put the link down below if you want to start from the beginning to see, how those were put together and what I've done. I kind of started with my own digital kit of vintage book pages. At the time I started this, I was buying lots of old books. So I've actually done videos on copyright to decide, how do you figure out what you're allowed to copy and use in digitals or just, in your own journals, just copying something over and over rather than, using the original book pages. There's a video on that. There's a video on this kit that I did. I also had done actual packages of original book pages that I'm sold out now currently, but I'll put some more together where you could buy packs of the old actual book pages to use. So if you don't have that, you can buy a digital kit that is old book pages, and there's just a variety of those. So this is already in my Etsy shop. I'm just showing it because this is what went into these journals that I've been working on. I also had done a volume 1 Vintage Collage digital that has been in my Etsy shop. And these two, between these two, or in my case, some original book page also, that is what created the signatures for the inside of my vintage book journals. So I used an old book cover and then used those digitals or actual old book page to create all the pages that went into my signatures. I think when I did this one, it was actually the pages themselves. There are a few, like this is a digital, but it's mostly just those and the book pages, and actually some of my old wallpaper prints that I had made with my jelly plate. So I will put a link to my Etsy shop because there's several kits now that are in those, including 3 kits from Roxy Creations. So I'll put her link down below also because I used her 3 French Chateau different collections in these. that was kind of what got me to creating these two collage kits, because I really liked how colorful hers were, but I didn't want to just do an entire journal using just those kits, because anyone out there can buy those and then mine would look just like everyone else's, except for however I finished them. So I wanted to do my own kits that would coordinate. That way I can kind of mix and match and use a little of each. And then it would kind of be my own original journal sort of thing. So these two kits were already in the Etsy shop, and I wanted to share with you the one that by the time this is uploaded will also be available in my Etsy shop. And then I'm going to show you the next steps that I did in my journals. My last video was about coffee staining paper because I was looking for old ephemera. I don't really have much in my own collection yet because I'm still, pretty new to this. So I don't have a lot of that, and it kind of took me down a little rabbit hole of coffee staining paper to get my stash, built up for this year. And then also being able to print vintage ephemera onto coffee stained paper to make it look like old original. Now that was the last video, so if you haven't watched that, go back and check that out because that was a lot of fun. It kept me busy for a week or two because I got crazy coffee staining everything. So I'll put this one aside. This is the new one that is in Etsy. It's the same number of pages as the last one, 14 sheets. I designed these just kind of as an experiment for myself, so you can let me know how they worked for you. I designed the designs in instead of 8.5 by 11, I did 8.3 by 11 because I want them to be able to print without distortion on either 8.5 by 11 paper or A4 paper. So if you keep the design to 100%, regardless of the size of paper you're printing on, then you won't get any distortion in your images. So I did the last kit that way. Let me know if you've had any issues or, if you think that's kind of weird to do that. But I just kind of thought it made sense to me. A4 paper is a little bit narrower and then a little bit longer than 8.5 by 11. This is 8.5 by 11. So I thought, well, if I make it 8.3, which is their height, and then the 11, they'll have a little bit, it'll fit this way on the A4 paper, there'll be a little bit extra on the edge, and vice versa for 8.5 by 11. So it just made sense to me. So I've printed, this is the cover thumbnail that you'll see on the Etsy listing. And I printed this just so you can see the color on the Epson Premium Presentation Matte paper. And this one is the 44-pound one. I also have videos, if you're brand new, about different paper to print on, I think. I haven't done a printer review. I'm using an Epson 8500 EcoTank. So I haven't done a full review on that yet. But I've been asked, what kind of paper to use to print. I kind of cover that in the digital printing for beginners. So if you look there, I kind of show different papers and things that you might print on. This is Epson because I'm using an Epson printer. The highest quality, I think, that I'm going to, for what I'm going to use it for, that I would use. So this is a heavier paper. It does come in 28 pound, so you don't have to have it be this thick if you want it on thinner paper. I just wanted to show this one page on the Epson paper, just so that you can see how vibrant and nice the color is if you are shopping for a printer. So that's the cover sheet. On this kit, there are more little ephemera things to cut out. It's arranged a little bit different. The first kit was, the pages were intended to be folded in half. You can print on both sides. So there are what I call B sides, more simple sides, to print on the back side. So these are all designed so that you would just fold them in half for your to go into your signatures. This one I created not in that way, but because I wanted to be able to cut things apart to use for cards and pockets and that sort of thing. So this is one page, and this is actually a vintage book cover that I have. I didn't digitally design this. This is the actual scan of the book cover. And then this was one of my scan that I did from one of my vintage books also. And then there's a couple things that maybe I got from Graphics Fairy or something like that, and then altered to add, just so they're all kind of little stamp sizes or card sizes that you can use as embellishment. So that is one page. This one you could fold in half. You know, the background of it was one of my book end papers. So, you know, it could be a page on itself. But again, it's all, you know, pieces that can be cut out for, you know, belly bands or cards, and you'll see when I do the flip through how I've used all these different elements. So this is another one. And I've just been, you know, kind of working on, I like a lot of these more than in my first kit, just because I've been working on my skills for layering and all that sort of thing. So this is another one with some of the things, again, like he's from my own scans, and then just some other different pieces, again, from different sources. And again, you know, tried to do them all kind of card or pocket size things. So here's another one. And I like to use different pattern, things that look like wallpaper, things that might have lines on them, that kind of thing. This is another one that you could actually fold in half for a signature. I was kind of in the process of trying to do some things that would be nice for the back of cards, you know, that sort of thing, journal cards and that. And ones that you could also even fold in half and have like a little cover for a little notebook, that sort of thing. And another one. So if you've seen Roxy Creations French Chateau series, that's kind of the feel I was trying to get without copying her. It's in my own sort of style, but things that would just kind of nicely complement each other, I think. This is the one, and I didn't print this on fabric, but if you have been watching, I had shown in a previous video, this is one of my fresco finishes. Actually, both sides of this are, and then this just has an overlay on the top. In a previous video, I showed where I had printed this onto fabric so that I could slow stitch on part of it for a spine cover, or on the inside, if you've seen how I've done these, fabric for this inside of the spine, and then for the outside of the spine. So this I printed on paper, but in my use of it so far, I have been printing it onto fabric. So I've included that. There was a video a few videos ago where I did many colors of this, and that might end up being a freebie because I want to do a freebie, and my file that I could upload onto the Etsy shop, it was too large to add all of these, so I just added the one that I actually used. So I have that piece. And then there are, I think there are 8 of those colorful pages, and then there are 6 of the what I call B-sides. So these are all just kind of different lined papers for, you know, journaling, that sort of thing, but with lots of texture and kind of faded in the background text and different things. So these you could even use for the backsides of journal cards, or even print them on the backsides of that the first collage where you're using them as signatures, the backsides of those. But then even to put them together, print front and back, you know, and then it's a folded signature too. So just for maybe you want a whole journal of just kind of more simple lined paper without so much color, you know, more neutrals. So they're all kind of simple. All of these pages I've printed on hammer mill 32-pound paper, and I used the fine setting, not the highest quality, but the fine setting. That's usually good enough for what I want to do, and I didn't need to print this on the paper. This is 32-pound, which is, you know, still like pretty heavy. 28, you know, is even thinner than this, and so I wanted to print so you can kind of just see how it looks on that. I'm gonna get another one. This one has a lot of texture in it. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, especially with my shadows here. I mostly print, I've printed all of these on just, you know, plain white paper. Normally I print on tea stained paper because for these kind of vintage looking journals and old book sort of things, I like the texture that tea staining or coffee staining gives your paper, but I wanted you to see the actual color if you printed it on white paper. So that is the kit. It will be available by the time this video is up. And then hopefully I'll also have a freebie that has all the different colors that I did of this one. Just because it was kind of fun, and I like those as backgrounds for collage too. So those are the kits that I'm using for these books. And now I wanted to show you some of the different embellishments that I have done. So when I am working, I've been organizing every day. I've been doing something that organizes my workspace a little bit better because my table gets crazy when I'm working, and sometimes it's overwhelming. So I'm trying to be better about corralling things. So this is actually just the lid of a file box, a small one, that I am putting my little torn off pieces, little scraps from this project. So it's kind of small now because I have been using them. I mean, I've been working on these 2 journals and this is all I have left right now. So that's pretty good. What I have done, there's like 3 different things I want to show you that I've been using for embellishments for this journal, for both of these journals. So one of the things that I did first, I guess I could go in the order, is I was cleaning off my table. I was actually at the other studio and had taken this with me. This is probably a month or so ago. And I had all these little tiny bits all over my table, the little small ones. And I try to, you know, I'm trying to get organized and corral things. So I have been using these from scrapbook.com, these plastic, you can kind of see through them envelopes. It's great because you can just kind of have a little shoebox here that I have. So I kind of have them organized by what project they are. So these are all the kind of, you know, medium-ish sizes that may be big enough to use for pockets and that sort of thing, journal card backs and that sort of thing. I kind of keep them all together. This is from my old Bohemian hand-painted papers, but just keep different kind of some ephemera. These are all reproduction ephemera. And then I have one that has my things that I have printed out on my coffee stain paper to look old. This was in the last video. So I've been kind of trying to organize into these envelopes, and that's been really helpful. A little easier to work with than those in these little plastic bins that I had been using, which I still use these because they're great for things that are thicker that would be hard to kind of put into those envelopes and look at. So I'm still using both, but this has been kind of handy. Soon I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of this studio. I did one of the last one because it was brand new. This one has been a mess from day one. So I'm trying to get more organized. So one of the things I did as I was cleaning off was making these little clusters out of just the little teeniest, tiniest scraps that I had. So for these, I only have these that aren't attached to anything yet. I guess I should get them where you can see them. But they're just the littlest, tiniest scraps. I used a glue stick and glued them together and then found something, like in this case, a little number. You know, in this case, I pulled out a stamp, something that I could use as kind of a focal point. That way, you use up every little piece. You know, you would just take a few and just start kind of layering them. In this case, I did, you know, used a little glue, glued them down, and then I did some stitching on my sewing machine. I might even have little pieces of tea bag in there, or this is tea bag that I've coated with the glue, you know. There might be little bits of lace in here or fabric. So whatever you have in your little scrappy thing, just start kind of layering them, and then you have a collection of these little scraps of paper, of these little clusters that then you can use in your journals. And I'm going to show you real quick. So I just kind of have those handy there in case I want to, you know, see if they can fit anywhere. So I've mark some pages where I think I used, now that's something else. Let's see. You can even take just your little scraps that you have, and instead of doing clusters, you know, as you're working in your book, you just can glue them down and do them right onto the book. But I kind of like when I'm, you know, when I'm doing a page, I maybe kind of want everything to coordinate. So that works well, you know, to go through your scraps to kind of collage right on the page. But if you're not, if you're just wanting to use them up and you're going to use them later, or just kind of have that happy accident, like, oh, this looks good on this page, that's kind of fun for me. So I like to have a little stash of them. The other thing you can do besides just gluing them onto your page is to turn them into a little kind of a hidden paper clip, a little decorative paper clip. So again, this was just some little scraps, a little bit of lace that I had ripped off. And then after I glued everything in, that's actually a real stamp. And then I just kind of did a little bit of stitching. So to do this, if you've never made these, they're just cute. They're just like a cute little addition. For this one, this page, I wanted it because, you know, sometimes when you have a belly band like this, the papers that you tuck in might slide back and forth and you need them to kind of stay where you want them. So it's just kind of handy to paper clip them on. And then it's kind of decorative there too. I think I have another one. Actually, this one I just did, instead of on the page or on a paper clip, onto just a little tag. But same kind of thing, just using the little torn off pieces. And it just is like really cute when you put them all together, even though they look like trash, you know. So that is one idea. And if you've never put made one of these into a clip, I kind of like to not, you know, the backs are still not finished. I kind of like to not finish them until I know where they're going to go, because I don't know which side I want the paper clip to be on, you know, if I want it to be a top one or not. So let's take this one and we're just going to say that it's going to be a top one instead of from a side. So all I would do is to grab a paper clip, a small one. A big one would work too. Here's a small one. You could use a rusted out one. This is just a silver one. I have these shiny gold ones, but most of mine I have rusted out to be really grungy, because that's more my style. And then some of them, I don't know. Oh, here's one. You can also use some little needle nose pliers from, you know, I have jewelry tools, but you could even just use regular little needle nose pliers, round nose pliers, I mean. And then just, you know, make little curly cues on the end. And then that way it just kind of makes that part that you might see on the other side of the page look decorative. So I've done a bunch of those in just kind of some different twisty things. But I think for this one, I'll just use the silver one. So I just take, it could be just a plain piece of paper or old book page on the back side, because you're not going to really see it. But I just take my paper clip and then I'm going to put another piece of paper under it. So it's clipped on there now. And then just glue that to the back of my, kind of tear it here. This doesn't cover my whole back piece, but it doesn't need to. It's just really going to hold that paper clip in there. So I would just glue that whole thing down. If my glue is not dried in here. So from this side, and if you want the big side, let's see, maybe you want the big side to go over. It doesn't really matter, but if I do, let's do that. And I just put glue over the whole thing. I think using glue, this is art glitter glue, any kind of PVA glue. Glue stick's probably not going to be strong enough. So I would just do that. And in the other ones, I had used old book page is a good thing, a good way to use up your old book page. And then just let that dry, and now you have a little hidden paper clip. Okay, So that's one idea to do with your little tiny scraps. And then the other thing that I like to do, and I haven't used any of these in those journals yet, but I probably will, is I went through and I just started pulling out anything that was a strip shape. Didn't matter how skinny it was. You know, I would use any of these. So I'm kind of have not very many in there because I've made all of these already. And it was so quick to do. So it's just taking those strips and then putting 2 together, or it could be 3 together. You know, some of these I have more. And just, you know, it could be centered, off-centered. And I didn't even glue these first. I was just trying to do them really quick. So they are just sewn together with my sewing machine. I see questions once in a while if you've never sewn paper, if you're a beginner, or if you don't have experience sewing. It's super easy. It's not going to, you know, ruin anything. I have 2 sewing machines. The good one is at the other studio. So here I just have the cheapest Singer sewing machine I could find at Walmart. And that was just kind of a backup or for things like paper. I have since used my other sewing machine for paper because that's what I have there. And it works fine. It didn't hurt it or anything. I just had it serviced and it was fine. So if you're new to this, you can use any kind of needle. I've seen people ask that question. Do you have to use a special needle? How often do you need to change your needle? You don't really, I've never changed my needle because I thought it was dull for using paper. If I'm going to do a sewing project on fabric after, I'll put a new needle in then. Otherwise, if you happen to break a needle, I've never broken a needle sewing on paper. I mean, it's paper. It's easier than sewing fabric because the needle pierces the paper. So just any kind of needle, any kind of thread. This is just all-purpose thread. I mostly use this color, which is kind of a caramely color because I like that whole kind of tea stain look, or black. Those are the 2 that I use. And if my stitching doesn't show up as much as I want on my paper, I'll just use my dauber. And this one's from my vintage photo. I didn't even dip it in ink. And you can just kind of run it over the top of your thread and it'll just darken it, make it stand out a little bit more. But I ended up, you know, making a ton of, this was just all the garbage scraps of tiny bits of paper. They could be torn, they can be cut. I didn't even really pay too much attention. This sewing machine that I have, because it's just a cheap one, doesn't have a lot of stitches. It just has like straight and zigzag. So if I want to change the look of it, I just change, you know, the spacing on my zigzags and the length of my stitches. So if I'm using a skinnier piece, I'll maybe have a skinnier zigzag. And then this one was wider. I made them a little farther apart. This one, they're wider this way and closer together. So you can get this variation. I'm going to kind of just show all these. You can even do it not straight on the paper. These may end up, you know, getting cut up to make snippet rolls, or it can be part of a belly band that I add it to. This one was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different little pieces. And I just kind of staggered them all, you know, they're not glued down, and just started a zigzag, adding that one in. This one I put underneath. And then this little skinny one, I just did a kind of a wonky straight stitch. So you can make them all different. You could even end up using the back side of it if you wanted. But they're just, you don't have to worry about sewing straight. I actually think they're kind of nice if they're wonky. This was a torn piece of paper, and then a cut piece and zigzag, and then 2 wonky lines of straight stitch. So just varying your, you know, you can try to get 2 pieces that have a little bit of contrast so they show up. Or you can do ones that are, let's see, kind of neutrals, you know. Put the colorful ones together and then put neutrals. Because I don't know where I'll end up using these, you know, colors that kind of complement each other or not, you know. I tried not to put too much thought into them just to get them done quickly. Here's a longer one that has 2 different kinds of stitching on it. Same with this one. I did a zigzag down the center and then just kind of free flow, you know, kind of moving your paper as you go. So just a whole bunch of little things. So these are just, you know, like a first layer of an element. Here's another one with the wobbly line, straight lines and a zigzag line. And then I think one of these, and I don't know if I'll find it here, my thread, this one kind of, sort of, my thread had come out of my machine and I didn't realize it. And I actually ended up just making pierced holes with no thread. And that's kind of nice too, because it just gives you kind of an extra little texture. One of these, I have a whole line like that, I think. Anyway, just lots of different, you know, this one I didn't even mind that there was a punched hole in it, you know. So these will all be, you know, added to other collage, added to, you can add them even on to, say you have a page somewhere, you know, like this one, I don't have anything on it yet. Maybe you just want to, you know, kind of strengthen up just that edge of your page. So you just glue that onto the edge and you just have a little decorative thing there. Or you have a belly band like this, or that's actually a pocket, but maybe you have a belly band or a pocket, you know, even on, you know, just the edge of a plane, kind of like you would use washi tape or something, just to kind of add a little extra design, but, you know, just something simple. Right there would even look good. So a way to just kind of use up a bunch of your scrappy things, and then you have these when you need them. So that was another little scrappy idea. And then one that it kind of evolved. I had bought in one of my showing you my vintage haul kind of things, I had bought a bunch of buttons from a friend. And I wanted to kind of start using them because I have my own collection. Then I bought her entire collection. And I wanted to, I thought, well, you know, maybe I'll share some, sell some, or, you know, whatever. And that got me to wanting to kind of create cute button cards. And so this is the first one that I did. And I was trying to do it where it wasn't really attached, so you could actually, you know, cut these off and use the buttons. They ended up being so cute. I don't know if I would cut the buttons off now and use them. So I thought, well, you know, they'd be cute journal cards, you know. So I kind of just took some bases, did some layering. This one actually was going to be, you know, to sell. So I don't know. I think now it turned into this thing that I thought, well, just as cute embellishments for my book. So I'll show you one that I did stick in a book, but I started with the collection that I was going to use. I thought, let me go through like the white buttons, you know, and kind of organize them. Well, what happened was I had all of these, the collection that I bought from her was all in little drawers, like a little, you know, fishing lure kind of chest thing, or hardware, you know, hardware chest. And so all the ones that were still like things on cards were taking up space, you know, instead of being the little bin with the little buttons. They had all these in it. So I thought, I'm going to take all the ones out that are on cards and, you know, sew those to a piece of fabric, you know, like taking these. I ended up, some of them were too white kind of looking, and I want them to look more grungy and old. So I actually just took some of my ink sprays, or, you know, just my vintage photo or whatever with the dauber. I've heard if you use alcohol inks that they will actually, you know, dye the button. And I don't think I did any like that. I think I just tried to dirty them all up, the ones that I didn't like how white they were. So I just took those little bits of, you know, card that they were on, and then like this one, I think I just glued, and then I would just do some slow stitching, just embroidery. This one was done on a machine, but just tried to, you know, use some of my scrap fabrics and scrap papers and different things and do some slow stitching. And here's another one. This one was done on a machine, but then this was all done by hand. Just little kind of marks, like mark making, but with thread. It was another good way to use up all my slow stitching mat that I've shown you before. I always end up with a little pile of threads that I don't put back on their bobbins. Maybe I used you know, 4 ply and I have 2 left or whatever. It was a way to use up all those little scraps of thread too. So again, this is one on its original little card. And I just used my vintage photo and then just did some little, you know, embroidery on it just to make it cute. I've left these off of, haven't put them on any kind of card backing because they also could end up in a slow stitching project. So I'm leaving these, you know, and I've just tried to grungy them up. So I've just done those. Then I had the idea, actually this one hasn't been sewn onto anything yet, but it had, I don't know why I stuck that on there. There was a hole, that's why. To just, you know, add other little things, and then I'll stitch this, you know, onto a piece of fabric, you know, and then keep going from there. So these were just a lot of fun to sit in the evening kind of and do, and they'll be cute to use for embellishments. But then I got the idea, I really liked the ones that were on their own, like this one shows you how it looks too new. You know, I wanted it to look grungy. So you know, it's from this to this, just by using your different to spray inks and that sort of thing. Then I decided I really liked how they looked like they were on, you know, their original card. These I still need to do. So all of these I put onto cards. These were just random white buttons or, you know, kind of clear buttons or pearly buttons. And I just took a piece of scrap cardstock that I had and I got it wet with my spritz bottle, and just so it can kind of make it wrinkle and then the wrinkles stay. And then just used, you know, my vintage photo dauber and just kind of to dirty it up. And then tear this up, you know, tear it up and put some buttons on it. So then you kind of have made these little things that can go on to, you know, be added on to things. I just like the idea of mixing fabric and paper and other embellishments together. So that is just kind of another idea, and I have used one, I think. Yeah. So here I just, you know, added it to a card that I clipped onto a page. So this was actually using one of my B-sides from the new kit. And actually that was from the new kit. And then I actually left this little part. So when I created the stitching and all that, it was onto this. And then it'd be like taking this and saying, oh, that could be turn that into a pocket, a card, a tag that's a pocket tag. So that's kind of how that evolved. So you can just tuck something in there. Anyway, it was just some kind of little thing to add to your journal as far as embellishments. So I'll put that aside. And then I kind of, you know, I'm just trying to keep myself organized and do fun things. So I ended up, just as a place to put these that's kind of cute and usable and maybe a step one done, is I had all this scrap of rusted fabric that I had. And I just started using up again, you'll see they're different colors, using up my embroidery floss and just stitching each button and tying it off each one instead of, you know, going to the next one. Because if I'm going to use this as some sort of embellishment or a tab or something like that, would be a cute tab, then I want to maybe have them spaced where I can cut in between, and then the button won't fall off. So I did do them so that they're each one sewed and tied. And I just, you know, do one color until I run out and did another color. But I'm going to leave them whole like this because that would even be cute to embellish, you know, the edge of a book or the edge of a page, or turn it into a belly band on a page, that sort of thing. So I'm doing a bunch of those. And these are the kinds of things you can just sit while you're watching TV at night and, you know, kind of do all that. So those were kind of 3 little projects that I have been trying to use up my scraps and finish up that kit. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give me a thumbs up. And if you have any questions leave them down in the comments. I have made reference to some of the other videos that I have done, so I will put a link down below to the playlist for this journal. It did go off on tangents like coffee staining paper, so there's 2 videos on that, and I don't know that I put them in this playlist because they were kind of not specific to just this journal. If you've just started following my channel or just haven't really paid attention, I have a ton of videos on there now, and I have them organized by playlist. So if you just look at all my uploads or playlists lists, it will have kind of categories. So maybe all the coffee staining or tea staining ones will all be in one place, that sort of thing. So I hope that makes it helpful for you to find things again once I've moved on. So I'm gonna do a next video that will do a flip through of these so that you can check them out. I don't know, I do have a list of people that were interested in these, so I will give them first dibs, but I am gonna be selling them. So I will try to get that flip through done and get those either gone or listed right away. And then I have another one that I'm working on that is in this same kind of, and that I'm going to sell naked with just the 3 signatures. This one I did 3 signatures and this one I did 5. I think 5 was too much for this book. It's pretty thick and there's still a lot you can add into it. So I never mind. Mine always kind of end up like this. And I like kind of setting them on the shelf where I see them that way anyway. But this was a little bit much. I think this is, you know, a little bit more workable with 3 signatures. So next video, I'll share those. So have a great rest of your day. Now go make something. Bye.